L'chaim, l'chaim. We have the schus tonight to be here together to verbring at the Yema Elula, at the Yortzeit of the Rebbetzin, of our dear Rebbetzin. We all remember how the Rebbe spoke about the Rebbetzin during the Shiva, and the Rebbe expressed himself when someone was trying to tell the Rebbe he heard about her specialty and our special greatness, and the Rebbe said that, in my opinion, it's no expression nothing could express the greatness of the Rebbetzin. Only the Hashem himself knows how great she was. The Rebbe expressed the Lashenes. He said about the Rebbetzin, she's a tzaddik, the tzaddik of the spater, that a righteous person who passed away, that is in this world even after her passing. And he said Zara B'chaim, Afu B'chaim, that when we learn from her ways. So from one hand, we know that the Rebbetzin was in a level that we can't even comprehend, but at the same time, the Rebbe asked us to learn from our ways, to lisnaik berucha, to go in our spirit, and to be a true Zara B'chaim, to follow in our ways. So therefore tonight we gathered here together. We have here with us Rabbi Lipsker, shliach of the Rebbe from South Africa, the head shliach of South Africa, and also a member of Agudas Siddur Chabad, Rabbi Mendel Lipsker, and we have here the Rebbe's doctor, Dr. Feldman, who was the Rebbetzin doctor, with the schus to be for many years, from Tov Shin Lamed Ches, from 1988 all the way with the Rebbe, and from 1978 with the Rebbe. And we have here Meir Shlomo Junik from the very famous Junik family, that together his father, who was a Meshamesh Bakedesh, was a Meshamesh by the Rebbe in the Rebbe's house, and then all the children had the schus to be Meshamesh in Bakedesh by the Rebbe and the Rabbitson. So we are going to hear tonight some stories about the Rebbetzin, and some to learn from her amazing personality, from amazing especially her being at Tzneya Leches. How the Rebbetzin was truly at the ultimate level of a tzaddik nister, and the ultimate level of a person who never took any credit, as we saw by the Eidos that the Rebbetzin said, of everything they asked her, she said, nothing belongs to me, nothing is for me. Like she's the kind of person who didn't take any pleasure, even from one, with a little finger, from the all honor and glory that she could have had from being the queen of Lubavitch. She always used to be on the side. She didn't want to take the ultimate tzaddiknista, the ultimate Tzneya Leches, the ultimate person, that value of only between her and Hashem, not for the show, not for the public, just between her and God and for the truth. So we're going to tell short stories. I just want to say something personal before I start asking our presenters, that we saw that concept of the Rabbitson about being a mother to all of us and being the queen of Lubavitch. Even though behind the scenes, as we just saw in the video, she was behind the scenes, but behind the scenes she knew everything was going on, and she worried for all the shluchim, she worried for all the chassidim, and whenever there was a need, she stepped in. I just heard today from my mother-in-law, Rabbi Levi Azimov, his mother, Basi Azimov. She was very close to the Rebbetzin. She was a Yisema at a young age, and the Rebbetzin, she really kind of almost adopted her and was really taking care of her. And she always went into the Rebbetzin. So in 1978, like 5 shluchim moved to France, and she spoke to the Rebbetzin about it. And the Rebbetzin said to her, 2 of the shluchim, they didn't know the language. And the Rebbetzin said that she's so concerned, she feels so sad for those couples who go, for the shluchim who go so far away and they don't have the language. It's so hard for them. So Mrs. Azimov said to the Rebbetzin, but that's the chinuch, that's the education we got. And the Rebbetzin said, maybe you got this education, not everyone got this education. That's very hard for them. She had the mother figure to Lubavitch. And I want to say a personal story that I was part of it. In 1983, I went on shlichus, at the schus to go on shlichus of the Rebbe to Seattle as a bacher, to the yeshiva. So the way it used to be, in those days there were only a few yeshivas, so not everyone was able to go. So there were only a few groups of bachim who were able to join shlichus. So there were a few bachim from Arleteren, a few bachim from Morriston, and we knew the list, and we were all excited that we are going to shlichus. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we hear that there is some new bacher who is going to be added to our list. And he was older than us. He was not from our yeshivas. He learned in Tiferes, and then he learned a little bit in Tomche, but he wasn't part. He was about Shuva, and we didn't know who he is. And Danola said he's adding, but we didn't understand what happened, and nobody knew. And he was with us only for 1 year. We were for 2 years. He was for 1 year. And then years later, maybe 20 years later, he told us a story that he really wanted to go on shlichus and was very sad. that he can't go on shlichus, but he couldn't get a shlichus. He had a special year in Tomche, and he still couldn't get a shlichus. So one day, the secretary of the yeshiva called him up to go on the third floor. Rabbi Gulkowski was sitting there. He needed to do some paperwork with him. So he went upstairs. He was going up and upstairs, and all of a sudden he met an older woman who was also going upstairs. And he didn't know who she is. And after a minute, she asked him for his name, and he realized that the Rebbetzin somehow. And he said his name, and she said to him, "Why do you look so sad?" So he was open. He said that he really wants to go on shlichus, and he can't get on shlichus. So she asked him, "What is your name?" And after he said the name, the Rabbitson said, "I'll see what I could do." Within days, he got a call from the Hanola that you are added on shlichus, and we got a call, there's a new bacher. And here was the Rabbitson, there was a bacher who was not from Lubavitch family, was about Shevat, there was nobody there to help him, and according to the rules, not even all Lubavitch bachim got gone, even not all from Lubavitch families, there was only very few. So according to the regular Seder, he couldn't get in. But the Rebbetzin, as a mother, she stepped in, she saw him sad, she felt, and that was the Rebbetzins role in addition to everything else. So today, we're going to talk about the Rebbetzin. We're going to learn from her unusual personality, from her Gedusha, from her Heiligkeit. I just heard today a story, just one more story, and then I would like to have Dr. Feldman share with us. I heard today a story from also a colleague and a friend of mine, Rebbe Kesselman, with a shliach in England, that he used to live, before he went to Shlichus, he used to live on the bakery in Albany Street, right here in Albany Eastern Parkway. So sometimes the Rebbetzin would come and the Meshamish would go in to buy something in the bakery. So one day his wife, who was giving some art classes to make a few more dollars, she was teaching another lady, and they were sitting there on the balcony, and all of a sudden the Rebbetzин's car came, the Rebbetzin unrolled the window, and she looked at them. So she knew the Rebbetzin, she was Rabbi Sudek's daughter. So she said to the other lady, "That's the Rebbetzin." And she ran away. And the other lady said, "I'll stay." And she looked at the Rebbetzin, and they looked at each other for a long minute. And then the Rebbetzin car left. And this lady couldn't have children for 10 years. And 9 months after that day that she looked at the Rebbetzin, she had a girl. And this was like Ba'ema Tov Shemem Ches, which was after the Rebbetzin passing. But you see what a Gedusha that she asked the Rebbetzin a bracha b'machshava, and the Rebbetzin she got the bracha just from looking at the Rebbetzin, even not from asking. That we see the Gedusha of the Rebbetzin and the holiness and who the Rebbetzin was. So we'll talk about it more, and I would like maybe to ask Dr. Feldman if you could share with us a few stories about the Rebbetzin.
I concur. I agree with everything you said. I've personally experienced it with the Rebbetzin also, face to face, word for word. And let me say at the onset that I think of the Rebbetzin every day. When you talk in davening about in terms of the kohen going up on the kevesh, where the ramp goes up very gradually and sloping, and his gown covers him down to his ankles. He went up on the kevesh to his mizbeach in a very sneistic way. And the Rebbetzin was nifter in a very sneistic way also. I was standing right with her. Either I or Esther Sternberg gave her the glass of water that she asked for. She made the bracha, shehakol, just as she told me her mother did, and I've been told other tzaddikim have done. She said shehakol, bevaro, put her head down, and we all kind of knew it was over, especially since I was with her and with the Rebbetzin and the Rebbe, as they said goodbye to each other. And it was just the three of us. The Rebbetzin shrugged his shoulders, said goodbye. The Rebbe stood erect with his hat and kapata on, and nodded his head. And also the fact that we were just reminded this evening by Meir Shlomo that about the nurse that the Rebbetzin had was a good friend actually. She was the Rebbetzin the day before this whole thing happened, or on the day of also. She called many people around the world, and it seemed to be just a friendly phone call, but obviously we know retrospectively that this was like a goodbye call. So I saw it happen. It was right there. Her neshama went up in a very sneistic way, and Chof, it went up on the kevesh. The kevesh stands for Chof Beis Shevat. So when I hear the word kevesh, I see, to me it says Chof Beis Shevat. Also, just as you do, we miss the Rebbetzin. We loved her. We love her still. And we miss her not just as a Rebbetzin, we miss her as a person, as a mother figure, and a grandmother figure. My children were in the, my children stayed with her in Friday afternoons to keep her company until the Rebbe would come home later on that Friday night, each Friday night. So we felt very close, not just as a Rebbetzin, but as a person. In addition, she also told me personally that all her children, all the Hasidim are her children, and her children are in 770. By the way, just as an aside, 770 also stands for the word emes. Emes, which equals 441. I know some women don't like gematrias, but emes is 441. 441 adds up to 9, Mr. Katan. 9 is Tesha, and Tesha is 770. Adds up to the Tuf, the Shin, and the Ayin is 770. And when things are equal to each other, that means two things equal to each other are are equal to each other. So all her children, in the concept of emes and the concept of being all her children. So why are we even here celebrating all this? Not celebrating, but honoring it or remembering it. We have Kabbalistic reasons why the neshama shines on this day, but even more importantly, this is part of our history. My history, your history, every one of you, every one of me. This is when someone passes away, we ask that person to be a good Tibetan, a good advocate for us in Shemayim above, where the heavens are, which actually controls us. And then many stories I've been many instances where I've been part of to show us that what we think is we're in control is really coming from a heavenly source.
Remember the stories you asked the Rebbetzin for brachas, and
the Rebbetzin for brachas in terms of showing that she also had Ruach HaKodesh. I was with the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin in a room one day in their house, and I asked the Rebbe what if we could get a bracha for a certain family to adopt a child, a certain child they had in mind. And the Rebbe turned to the Rebbetzin and said she can also give brachas. She tried to laugh her way out of it, but we all knew it was true. In fact, I did have one person one time who spent a lot of time with her, Hesed Halberstam, who actually had the nerve to ask the Rebbe, what is the difference between your bracha and the Rebbetzins bracha? And he tells me, the Rebbe said that with my brachas, you need to be a kli, you have to make a vessel to receive the brachas. But the Rebbetzins brachas are coming from such a strong, high level that you don't even have to make a vessel for it. That you just get that, you get that bracha. To show you that she actually demonstrated to me, to show that she actually had Ruach HaKodesh, it's a famous, many times told story, the fact that whenever I went out in the wintertime without a coat, the Rebbetzin would always call me to ask me why I didn't wear my coat when it was such a cold day. The interesting thing is that I could see it if I went by her house and all, but I would never, I made it a point never to go near her house on a cold day if I didn't have my jacket. I would drive another direction, I would walk another extra block, just not to go near the house, in case she was looking out the window and she saw I didn't have my jacket on. But even if I never went near her, I was blocks away. Still, as I walked back in my house, I'm walking past the telephone, the phone's ringing. So I didn't have to even move my feet. I just reach up and pick up the phone, and hello, this is Rebbetzin Schneerson. Why didn't you wear your coat today? So there's no way she could have known that without Ruach HaKodesh. And I know that her brachas were, and every word she said was coming from a different source. Both she and the Rebbe were, when you were with them, sometimes you didn't know if you're talking to the Rebbe or the Rebbetzin, or Mr. Schneerson, or Rabbi Schneerson, or Mr. Schneerson. And there were times he thanked me on behalf of Mr. Schneerson, and it was the same with the Rebbetzin also. There were times she would say something just as the Rebbe would say something, and there might be times I might say, no, that can't be true, it's something different. And then they would repeat it again a second later, the same sentence. And this time I would say, you never know, but I don't think so. And then they would repeat it a third time, and when each of them would pull that maneuver on me, I'd realize, hey, I'm not talking to Mr. Schneerson, I'm not talking to Mr. Schneerson, I'm not talking to Rabbi Schneerson, I'm talking to the Rebbetzin or the Rebbe. And I realize I'm talking to a higher source. Again, there are other stories we could tell another time, but the essence of the story is if you hold your hand over a table, you see a shadow. And we live in that shadow, and we think that's the real world. But you got to remember that the strings are being pulled above. So that's the same feeling I would have if I was with the Rebbetzin and also with the Rebbe.
With your permission, I would like to ask maybe Rabbi Junik to share with us a few stories that he had, personal stories with the Rebbetzin, and especially now, since now it's Motzei Shabbos, we all know that the Rebbe valued the Rebbetzin in such an amazing way, and the Rebbe used to. There was once in public that by Farbrengen in 1979 was a Motzei Shabbos Farbrengen, and the Rebbe said in public that there is the Ramo brings in halacha that there is a minhag. There used to be a minhag that ladies used to go to dwell water from a well, because it says that the Beir Shel Miriam, the well of Miriam, travels around all the wells around the world. So if you catch the water from the Beir of Miriam, from a whole well, all the machlas and all the sicknesses you have all heal. So the Ramo says, but I didn't see nobody has that nobody does the minhag. Then the Rebbe said, but the Alter Rebbe in his Shulchan Aruch brings the whole thing the Ramo, and he takes out the words that we don't see the people do the minhag. So the Rebbe said, maybe we should do this minhag. But then the Rebbe said, but I never saw it by my Ona Keres Abayis. I never saw by the Rabbitson. And I saw by my Shviger, and never saw by the Shviger, which means the Rebbetzin Sterne Sore. So the Rebbe said, since I didn't see by my Rebbetzin, but the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch took out the words of the Ramo, said I didn't see the minhag, so everyone should do whatever they feel to do. The most important is the Ruchnistic thing. So the Rebbe in public, by Farbrengen, is discussing a minhag, and he's discussing based on what the Rebbetzin did, if that the minhag should be done. So we saw how the Rebbe valued every word that she said, and we know that a lot of times things that the Rebbetzin said, later we heard from the Rebbe. So especially the people who were close to them, like you and Rabbi Junik, have had that experience. I would like to have Rabbi Junik share with us a few experiences that he had with the Rebbetzin.
First of all, it's a good vach. I want to start first with a story, Motzei Shabbos. My father had the schutz to Shabbos and the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin for many years. So one of the things that the Rebbe told my father once, that by Rebbe Shver's Vater, given am Shabbos, geheißen ab Mendel. Mishas fragt fragen, was tut sich beim Rebbe, fragt sagen, ich weiß nicht, oder ein anderer Territz. Ebi can't vergessen, is sicher gut. I will explain it in English. My English is not the greatest, but I'll try my best. But the Rebbe told to my father that by my father-in-law, his father, that means the Rebbe Rashab, there was a Misharis who used to be by the Rebbe. And when they used to ask him what's going on with the Rebbe, he used to say, I don't know, or another excuse. But if you can forget, is better. That's what the Rebbe told my father. So I'm going to try to say whatever I can remember, whatever I didn't forget. We talk about the Rabbitson. I want to bring a story about, I heard from Leibel Bestritsky years ago. There was one time that he went out, that he approached the Rebbe, and he wanted to ask the Rebbe something, and the Rebbe responded to him that as ich darf jetzt gehen spazieren mit Rebbe Schwester Tochter. The Rebbe looked on the Rebbe.
In English?
Yeah. The Rebbe told Leibel Bestritsky one time that Leibel Bestritsky went off the Rebbe, wanted to ask something, and the Rebbe had to go out. So the Rebbe said, I have to go out now and take a walk with the Rebbe, with my father-in-law's daughter. So the Rebbe looked on the Rabbitson and the Rebbe Shver's Tochter. I watched the video of Jem, one of the videos, and someone came by for Shiva and mentioned to the Rebbe that Rabbitson was a wonderful woman. And the Rebbe answered, that's an understatement. Even us, we don't even understand who the Rebbetzin was. They say the Rebbetzin was royal. It's beyond that. Royal is for people who have begashmias. The Rebbetzin was holiness, godliness. The Rebbetzin were one. They worked together. The Rebbetzin was involved in daily activities. And I'll tell you a story about my father once went into the Rebbetzin, and there was a time that the Rebbe had some pain in his leg, and my father spoke to Rebbetzin about it, and was right before Rosh Hashanah. So the Rebbetzin responded, "My man hat nicht mehr auf kein Wetter, got mehr auf Rosh Hashanah. My husband is not afraid of any pain; he's afraid of Rosh Hashanah." One time, this was the last Shabbos in the library before Shevat. My father went in with my younger sister Chani, and the Rebbetzin asked my father what's going on. And that week, my mother went to the convention. There was the ladies' convention. It was out of town, and Rebbetzin asked, "What's the time? Wo gehst du essen?" So my father told her that he's going to eat by my brother from Baruch. So sein gesund und stark. And then when my father's ready to go, so the Rebbetzin says, as the month it's the gain the gas wird mir kalt. When I remind myself that you have to go in the street, I become cold. This how sensitive the Rebbetzin felt another person, the sensitivity.
I think you had a story about your word with the Meir.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go about my word. First was before I got engaged, my father wrote in if I should go out, and the Rebbe answered, "Katzatz b'noi shiche." It's up to your son. And that was when I got engaged. So the Rebbe answered the answer for bet gechlit u'shneim, the whole bracha. But the Rebbe answered, put on top kvisit m'teira. The first thing on top of the whole bracha, he added kvisit m'teira. Then we wrote in for the vort. So the Rebbe gave the bracha was a begit for the vort. I'm also gemacht a vort. From the Salachayim, but years ago it was a vort. And the Rebbe answered, "Vade yachse maimer dach." For sure, you're gonna say a maimer. The ach is the divrei Elokim Chaim. So I prepared myself. The Rebbe said I have to study a maimer, I have to learn a maimer. So I did it, and I was speaking to the Rebbetzin, and I was a working boy at that time. I used to work in a whole day, and then I used to come back to 770. I lived on the third floor for a couple of years. So I complained that the Rebbe is putting me to work now. I have to study a maimer. You know, I was a little, but I had no choice. I had to do it. The Rebbe gesagt auf den Ton. Sunday, when my parents went by for dollars, the Rebbe asked my parents, "Wodurch gein the Maimer b'sholem ganzen?" How did the Maimer go through? B'sholem all the way, and then I said a Maimer every Sheva brachas.
So can you say? Oh, you said it in English, okay?
Right, I said it over in English. I went with the Rabbitson. I went with my Kala. Future Kala. We made an appointment, but the Rebbetzin was like around 5:30 in the evening, and we went to I called my wife, and it was mamash a last minute arrangement, and my wife didn't have a chance even to put on any jewelry. Like I wanted her to put on a special jewelry. You go into the Rebbetzin something, but my wife was with not much time. I told her to come right away. And as we came to the Rebbetzin, I remember the Rebbetzin prepared very nice dishes on the table, and the Rebbetzin was sitting actually on. I think on that side of the table in the dining room, my wife was sitting here across, and I was sitting over here. And the Rebbetzin asked my wife about her family, and I mentioned, and the Rebbetzin also asked about my wife's grandfather, Meir Gurkov. We mentioned the name Gurkov, so she asked about Meir. She said she knows him from Lubavitch, Meir Gurkov. That was my wife's Elta Zayda. And then I mentioned to the Rebbetzin as the Kala got a chance on a stickle jewelry. That the Kala didn't have a chance to put on any jewelry because I was rushing to come here. So the Rebbetzin tells me she's alone a stick jewelry. She's alone a piece of jewelry.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I have more to say, but I want to remind you about a story. You want to say a story about your daughter, about
The story about my daughter is, as I said, my oldest daughter and my younger daughter would keep the Rebbetzin company on Fridays until the Rebbe would come home after davening.
Right.
And then when it came to the shidduch for my older daughter Sarah, she consulted the Rebbetzin about it, and the Rebbetzin gave her some advice. But the main thing is when Rebbetzin heard who the chassan was. She said, "Now I know," that was Rabbi Levi Shem Tov, a shliach in Riverdale. "Now I know I'm very happy because now I know you'll speak Yiddish to your children." They were married a good 13 years and still no children, but they clung to this. They said if the Rebbetzin said that she will have children, that she'll speak Yiddish to her children, she knew there were going to be children. And sure enough, after 13 is the concept of, 13. 13 is Echad, 13 is together with Hashem and together with each other. Anyway, after 13 years, she did have twins, and she had another child after that. But they clung to this idea that if the Rebbetzin said it was going to be, they knew it was going to be.
As I want to go back to a story here, and also I'm going to get in a little bit into Rebbe, and then I'll go back into the Rebbetzin, but I think everything is very important. I got to see there on Thursday night, and Motzei Shabbos, I saw the Rebbe again before he left, before he went home. It was in the, next to Label Grown had an office right behind the Gan Eden Tachten. So as the Rebbe went out to go home, the Rebbe saw me again. The Rebbe had mir noch einmal angewünscht noch einmal Mazel Tov, ze sein der Chastam Shavtei Mitzlachas, the Chastam should be in a good auspicious time. And the Rebbe asked me who was going, so I mentioned my father, mother, and my brothers and sisters, whoever's at home at that time. And as the Rebbe was going down the stairs, the Rebbe tells Label Gronim, Mr. Amavest as a Nomen Chaman Zayden. The Rebbe tells Label Gronim, probably he knows he's a name after my grandfather.
You are named after the
I'm a name after the Rebbe's grandfather, Meir Shlomo Yanofsky. And then as the Rebbe walked out towards the car, and I stood upstairs, and all of a sudden Label screams, and the Rebbe comes back inside from outside, and the Rebbe walks towards the first, right before the step. I ran down, and the Rebbe was facing, like going up, and I was facing the Rebbe, and the Rebbe points to me. I'm a stam avest to it. There was a nomen nachamai zayden the night before my wedding. Okay. Also, there was a one time. Also, the Rebbetzin once mentioned that was good for me that I was in 770, because that will keep me in the a little. It's good for my ruchnius. So that's good. She was happy.
Story with the sicher with the pizza.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. Yeah, I'm going to get to the story with the pizza. But I'm going to. Also, one time I was as I was working in 770 upstairs. One time I discussed right before the Svarim story broke, and I spoke about. I told her that I want to go to Israel. I want to take a vacation. I needed a little break, and she tells me, "Why are you going? Why are you traveling?" So I told her, "Oh, so I say I want to go in the holy places." So she tells me, "My tata need genug, my father's not enough." That's what she told me.
She meant the Rebbe's, the Fidik
The Fidik Rebbetzin. My father's not enough. One time in the library, it was after Verbringen, I came to her and she offered me something to eat, and I said to Chumzat, I'm full, I'm not hungry. So she says, "If Verbringen zetiktan, if Verbringen fills you up."
If Verbringen could fill up.
Like if Verbringen could fill you up, but she said,
"If understands you why you were not hungry."
Correct. Yeah. Now one time. This was also after Verbringen. It was pretty late. I didn't think the Rebbe would come home and come to the library. I mean, the Rebbe. I can explain what the library is. The Rebbetzin used to come to the library the last years. The Rebbetzin used to come to the library, so it'll be easier for the Rebbe also to be able to be Shabbos, be together with the Rebbetzin. So this was after Verbringen, and I went to the library and I had the key to the front door. I knocked on the second door, to get in to the Rebbetzin, and the door doesn't, and she doesn't answer. Anyways, I gave a little open the handle. I opened the door, but the chain was locked. Anyways, I closed it, and then I tried to knock on the other door, and obviously the other door is locked too. As I was ready to go out, I see the Rebbe coming up from the stairs. I mean, there's the Rebbe coming from 770. So I waited. I held the door open, and as the Rebbe came inside, I told the Rebbe that klappen in Tier, and the Rebbetzin empfängt in the Tier. So
in English.
Yeah. So I told the Rebbetzin, I tried knocking on the door, and the Rebbetzin doesn't answer the door. So I think the Rebbe tried to open the door, and he says the chain was on. So the Rebbe tried the other door. The other door was also closed. So I told the Rebbe, I have a key. It'll take me only a minute. I'll go from the side, and I'll open you the door. So the Rebbe asked me, how do you go from the side? So I didn't want the Rebbe to come down with me and walk around all the way up to 770 and come back through the library and come back through the Tashlech. Years ago, the original Tashlech in 770 used to be behind the library. So the Rebbe, so I told the Rebbe, I have a key, and it'll take me only a minute, and I'll run around and I'll open you the door. I ran around, and as I came around, I put the key in. I opened the door. I knocked, and I opened the door, and there was a curtain in the dining room in the back. There was a curtain there, and as I opened the curtain, I see the Rebbetzin was sitting by the table. And I think she got startled for a second as I walked in, and I told her, as the Rebbe steht and by the Tier.
Can you say in English?
And she got startled for a second. I told her that the Rebbe is standing by the door, I can't get in. So I went to the front, I opened the Rebbe the door, as I opened the door, the Rebbe told me Yasher Koyach, and then I told the Rebbe, Anschuldig. I told the Rebbe, I'm sorry. And that's it, and I ran out. Afterwards, and the Rabbitson was sitting on the other side of the that was in the dining room, and that's in the front is in the other side of the house.
So basically, she couldn't hear.
She couldn't hear it. She couldn't hear it. The Rabbitson couldn't hear it. And later she asked me if I was going to have to shuldikum for the man. Why do you have to excuse yourself for your husband?
For my husband.
For my husband. So I explained to her. I felt bad that I had to wait till I go around and open the doors. I felt bad he has to wait for me. One time also there was in the library. The Rabbitson offered me something to eat. It was a cheese Danish. She offered me a Danish. So I was in the middle eating, and all of a sudden I hear the front door opening, and I got up. I was in the kitchen, and I got up, and I was like between the kitchen and dining room. I was like, oh, it's a tumult. And the Rebbetzin tells me, "Was lebst du? My mom bites nicht. Where are you running? My husband doesn't bite." And then all of a sudden I see the Rebbe passing by. The Rebbe saw me. The Rebbe acknowledged, he saw me there, he shook with his head. Then I saw the Rebbe go and take off his coat and put it over the recliner. And I ran out from the front door.
With your permission, we would like to speak for a minute about Tov Shel Lamed Chet, but before that I would like to ask Rabbi Lipsker if he could bring it down to V'achayit and Libre, the living should take to heart, to say something about what we could learn and how we could learn from the Rebbetzin, something that could...
One story about
Sure.
the Rebbetzin did open the door one Friday night and saved my life. I was called to that the Rebbetzin wasn't feeling well, so I put my medical equipment in a big white shopping bag and or garbage bag, and I carried it, showing it to... there's a halacha that health is so important that everything else gets pushed aside in terms of like a tzala must respond, and if someone's involved in, let's say, a health business, you have to show that you're carrying your equipment, not hide it, because health is that important. So I put my materials, my instruments into a white bag, and I carried it, went up to the Rebbetzon's house, and knocked on the door. There was no response. Now, in those particular years, there was some problems with a disagreement with another group, let's say. And there were some Israeli guards, boys who had been through the army in Israel, were in a house next door to the Rebbe and Rebbetzin, and they had a very vicious dog with them. That dog was so bad, it even bit the Rebbetzin once. So here I am knocking on the door on a Friday night, carrying a big white bag, and they didn't know who I was. They're from Israel, and they were there to protect the house and protect the Rebbe and Rebbetzin. So they started coming. Here I'm knocking on the door. The Rebbetzin didn't answer. So they started coming at me with this dog leading the way, about 5 of these guards, and I knew they weren't coming to wish me a good Shabbos. So I was more than a little concerned, and I rang the doorbell frantically. The Rebbetzin came to the door, and she realized in a second what was going on, and with one wave of her hand, they all backed off, and they all went back to the house where they were protected. If she didn't answer the door at that time, I wouldn't be here today, I promise you. At least not in one piece. That dog was doing what... He was not a nice dog, put it that way.
But she was brave with that dog, because I saw her try to calm the dog down.
Right, yeah.
And she was pretty brave.
Yeah, but he's still bitter, at least once.
Thank you.
Right.
So, Rabbi Lipsker, if you could share with us a few
I'm
words.
fascinated with what we hear these stories, because as we all know, the Rebbetzin, exceptionally private people. And even though the Rebbe was the most public person in the world, an exceptionally private person, and the Rebbetzin was very private, as we hear from all sorts of sources, how she purposely did whatever she could to stay out of the limelight. And Chof Shevat, in a sense, something changed. There were different moments by the Rebbe, Shnas HaShivim at the 70s, Shnas HaShmeinim, when things changed dramatically. And of course with Chof Shevat, things changed as well. What began was the whole Aveda of V'achayit Nalibe, that the living must take to heart. It's a pasuk Kehelis, which is a bit of a difficult pasuk because it speaks about a person having to acknowledge the fact that he's mortal. And there's life and there's beyond life. But the Rebbe, of course, giving it a different dimension altogether, spoke about v'hachai. It has to be done with a tremendous excitement, with energy, with passion. And because of the fact that it's close to proximity to the month of Adar, a month of joy, it has to be done with a tremendous sense of joy as well. And I'm sure we all felt at the time a tremendous pain, a sense of loss that we saw in the Rebbe. We felt it from the Rebbe. And yet, instead of allowing it to become, God forbid, a loss, a negative situation, the Rebbe started with a whole new dimension of inspiration, upliftment, as far as the Hasidim were concerned. Farbrengens changed. There was no longer weekday Farbrengens, but every single Shabbos there was a Farbrengen. The fact remains that the Rebbe allowed us, at that time, into an intimate dimension of his life. The fact that the house became the center. The house became the center for davening. That's where the Rebbe spent the year. The house became a center for dollars on Sunday. I mean, very few people. We hear from our guests here and from others. A limited amount of people came to the Rebbe's house. It was a very private place. And yet now it became a public space. And in a sense, what the Rebbe was doing, he was allowing all of us into an area of his life, of the Rebbe's life, of the Rebbetzins life, that heretofore was basically closed to most people. And this is something that you cherish. The Rebbe Melech allowing us into a private dimension of his life. This is something which is quite extraordinary. It's something which is beyond any type of definition. You know, coming into the private chamber of the king in the palace, the throne room, the most private room. And the Rebbe allowed us into his life, into his home, on that sort of level. And this is why, when it comes to Chof Beis Shevat, we have to think to ourselves, what kind of nechama, what kind of consolation can we give the Rebbe? We have to think about doing something that would make the Rebbe happy. We have to think about something that would give a tremendous level of joy to the Rebbe. Chof Beis Shevat is a day, I think as Chassidim, as Shluchim, as people who work at the whole idea of iskashnos, of connecting with the Rebbe led us into a private place. We can't just take it for granted. We can't simply say, well, that's what happened. It's not that at all. And this is why in Chof Beis Shevat, we are duty-bound to do something that would give the Rebbe nechama, that would give the Rebbe consolation and joy, in a sense, upliftment. I once heard from a shliach who was connected in that sort of way, that the Rebbe once told somebody that he gets great pleasure and relaxation when he reads the duchim, the reports that shluchim send in about their accomplishments, about the work that they do. And this is why on Chof Beis Shevat we have to stop and think to ourselves, what joy, what nechama can I give the Rebbe today? And it's something which is compelling, it's something which has to be dramatic, it has to be something which is genuine, it has to be something which is, well, on the one hand it could be a public thing, because after all we are public people, we are involved in the public, but at the same time it has to be properly internalized as well. Because Chof Beis Shevat v'hachayit nalibay is not merely a statement from Kehelis. It is something which the Rebbe changed in terms of his relationship with us, and therefore our relationship with him. And therefore, when I hear these stories about the Rabbitson, and it's only after Chof Beis Shevat that we learned who the Rabbitson was. Even we knew, people told stories. There were always a bit whisper here and there, a story here and there. The individuals who had the schus of being within close contact with the Rebbetzin. But it's only after Chof Beis Shevat that through the Rebbe we began to understand that this was not a normal, a regular human being. This was not an ordinary human being. This was the highest of the high. This was exceptionally on certain levels beyond. I mean, we know the Rebbe, and to us the Rebbe was the ultimate, and the Rebbe spoke about her in ultimate terms. That wonderful is an understatement, etc., etc. And there are no words, as we heard earlier on, no words to describe the greatness of the Rebbe, of the Rebbetzin. And this is why Chof Beis Shevat is a time that we have to consider these things and talk about these things and to be inspired by the stories. It's not only stories that we're listening to, it's not only stories of a great righteous woman. These are stories of a mother, of a queen, of a person who thought about us, a person who cared about us. We didn't even realize to what degree she cared about her Hasidim. I remember a story that your brother was in South Africa, and he had a medical situation that he wanted. And he spoke to the Rebbetzin on the phone, and the way she was so concerned what she should do and who he should ask and how he should go about things, and to ask reshus from the Hanhola and whom on the Hanhola to speak to. It was with such detail and concern, it was quite inspiring. These are not stories that simply, we're talking with Tzai Shabbos around the table about great things. We are talking about uplifting things, about things that should change our lives, and in a sense the change has to come through what we can give in whatever way we can.
Very important. To answer your question, how can we make the Rebbe and Rebbetzin happy even now? And that's to be b'sameach, be happy. As the Rebbetzin once said, if something's not happy, it's not Lubavitch. Now that doesn't mean a silly happiness. We should be happy with our knowledge of what the Tanya teaches us. We should be happy with our lives if we're leading and should be leading the correct, the type of life the Rebbe and Rebbetzin would be happy with. When my daughter and son-in-law had their l'chaim planned to be married, that was the time when that was Chof Beis Shevat. And we didn't know whether should we go ahead with the l'chaim, should we make it extra small. We had a small regular l'chaim in the house planned. And I didn't tell the Rebbe, but the Rebbe called me in and said, I know that the Chas and Kala, your daughter and son-in-law are going to have their l'chaim, and I know what the Rebbetzin would want it to be big, not small. We want live music, real plates and dishes, silverware, and it should be b'sameach. That's what he told me, that's what the Rebbetzin would want from them. Her last words also on the way down to the car to the hospital was only talking about that particular chassan and kala, Rabbi Shem Tov and my daughter Sarah. So how can we satisfy them? How can we do something for them? That's to be sameach, be thankful that and happy with that we can be doing what the Rebbe and Rebbetzin would want. I know there have been times I've asked to just even talk to the Rebbe or the Rebbetzin about, but mostly the Rebbe, in terms of can I cut back? I have a very busy life, working almost around the clock, always responsible, no breaks at all. If I would even ask the Rebbe if I could cut down a little bit, he'd be extremely angry at me. We're here to do a certain job in this world. If I would ask to even go to another field, to do anything, the Rebbe would, he was so angry sometimes he didn't want to look at me. Until finally, even in the Igris, asking many times, I was told that you asked me the same question many times, but I can't make you do it, but if you don't listen to me, it won't be good for you. And any time I even think of cutting down and not being happy with having the knowledge of Lubavitch, the insights of Lubavitcher thought and Tanya, something bad does happen and doesn't get better until I say to myself, okay, Rebbe, I'm going to do my best to be b'sameach with Bechelko, be sameach with not just Gashmias, but having the emotional support behind me to be able to withstand the many pressures and that are thrown my way that I'm supposed to be here to handle, but to do it with happiness, to do it with simcha. Without that, the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin would have been extremely upset. But we're not done. We're talking about Chof Beis Shevat, but it occurred on this parsha. This parsha,
just because they want to move on to another subject before we finish the Verbringen, if you don't mind, I just want to speak about that. One of the times, 3 times throughout the 40 years of the Rebbe's leadership, we know that the Rebbetzin was always behind the scenes, involved in everything. But three times we saw when the Rebbetzin, when there was a need, she stepped up and almost it wasn't literally public, but was almost public. Mm-hmm. So the first time we saw it was Tafshin Yud, when the Rebbe refused to receive the Nesias. So the Chassidim went to everyone they could, and some Chassidim went also to the Rebbetzin. And the Rebbetzin is the one who said to the Rebbe that if the Rebbe will not accept the Nesias, everything my father built will go down. Right. So therefore, and the second time we saw it in Tov Shel Lamed Ches, In Tavshin the second time we saw when the Rebbe was not, Rabbi Krinsky just told the story, an amazing story that when the Rebbe had a major heart attack. We all know Simchas Torah, the Shmini Atzeres by night, and when the Rebbe had this massive heart attack, and the Rebbe refused to go to the hospital. And doctors have come, and we're going to hear from Dr. Feldman, who was there. Doctors have come, and the Rebbe didn't want to go. So it came to a point, it was 4 or 5 in the morning, when the monitors showed that the Rebbe has a massive heart attack. And the doctor said that there's nothing to do, and we have to sedate, we have to put the Rebbe to sleep and take him by force to the hospital. And the Chassidim and the Maskirim and the Rabbanim were considering it. And all of a sudden, the Rabbitson comes down from upstairs, and she says, "What's going on?" And they told her what the doctor say. And the Rabbitson said, "From the day I know the Rebbe, from the day I know my husband, he was always in control on himself, and I cannot allow you to take him to the hospital." So the doctor's like, "What are we going to do now?" And Rabbi Krinsky went to the Merkez, and the Rebbe, he realized the Rebbe is walking behind him. And as he walked into the office, the Rebbe says to him, "Rabbi Krinsky, you know so many people. Can't you find a doctor for my husband?" And that second, as the Rebbe said it, the idea of Dr. Weiss came to his mind. So Rabbi Krinsky explained, I mean, in such a critical moment, every regular person would say, we have to do it, it's pikuach nefesh. And here what the only person from all the Chassidim, who was the true Chassid of the Rebbe, who had the true Rabbi Krinsky, that was the Yechidish ben Nefesh Kashas to the Rebbe, the Rabbitson said, if the Rebbe said no, it's not. And even though the Rebbe, the only person that she had in her life, is in the most critical condition. And the third time, of course, was in Tavshin Memhei, even though the Rebbetzin was the most private person. And yet, to save the house of Lubavitch, to save the future of Lubavitch, the Rebbetzin was willing to be in the position, as we all know about it. And the Rebbetzin knew that it's going to be public. She knew that there's a video from it. She knew it's going to be shown in court. We were all the Bachim and the Chassidim, we were all packed in court every day. That was read in court. She knew it's going to be in the record in court. Anybody who wants to go could help and see it. And yet the Rebbetzin knew that for the Rebbe, for the Sforim, for the Chassidim, she's going to be there no matter what. And as the Rebbe said, Rabbi Krinsky, she'll do it with flying colors. And she did. As the Rebbe, famous thing the Rebbe said about the Rebbetzin after the Shiva, that the words that the Rebbetzin said, that the Tata Alein belongs to Chassidim, to my father himself, with the Sforim, with everything, he belongs to the Chassidim. And that was what really affected the entire court case, as the judge was affected by that, and that was, the Rebbe said, it affected in the Elam Hazet, that it became King Yaakov, became eternal, that the Rebbe and the Chassidim are one, and the Chassidim are here, Zare B'chaim, Zu B'chaim, the Rebbe is alive. So I would like to ask Dr. Feldman if you could elaborate a little bit about Lamed Ches when he was there.
Well, that particular incident, earlier in the evening, there were many physicians there at the Simcha. Don't forget, it was Shmini Atzeres, and we were having a kafis. And there were many people coming from all over for this, and there were many doctors also. When the majority of doctors heard that the Rebbe didn't want to go to the hospital, they left. Finally, after there was just Dr. Richter and myself left over there, I went in. I thought, let me try also. So I went into the Rebbe, and I explained to him that we have a lot of equipment here for the Rebbe, and we have doctors, and it was me. At that time, I was a cardiac intensivist, and Dr. Richter was a well-established surgeon. And so I said, we have doctors here, we have much equipment, but it's still better in a hospital where they have more people and even more equipment. And that's the famous time when the Rebbe said to me, "Do you see my chair?" And I said, "Yes." "Do you see my desk?" I said, "Yes." "And do you see my books on the wall?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, this chair and this desk and these books have heard the tears and the energy of my Hasidim, and that's what's going to get me better." It was interesting, and now a couple hours later, the Rebbe called me over to bedside, and he said, "How are things going?" So I figured he probably knows what's doing medically more than we would even though we knew every move he made with the cardiac monitors we had set up in the Gan Eden Taktoinim right next to his office. So I told him, it was still Shmini Atzeres, I said, "I still see Hasidim singing and dancing in the street." And I didn't tell him, explain his cardiac status. I said, "I still see Hasidim singing and dancing in the street." He smiled, he was happy with that answer. Now that came up years later when he was wheeled back, when he had the stroke at the at the oil, and they wheeled him back into his room, and he turned to me, sitting in his wheelchair, and he said, Shira V'Zimra. Now, nobody else there quite understood that because it was a personal conversation between the two of us. Shira V'Zimra, he felt that was the singing and dancing, the good thoughts and the happiness, again, returning to the concept of happiness, of the Hasidim was going to get him better also. And that's why he said Shira V'Zimra instead of answering any other questions. Just to what I started to say before, to point out that this is a continuum. In the Parsha this week, Yisro comes to Moshe, and he says, Hani chasancho Yisro. Now, Yisro and Moshe knew each other a long time. They lived together a long, long time. I don't go up to my Shver Rabbi Shem Tov, Hani chasancho Moshe from, but we know each other. So it bothered me a long time. What could that mean? So I started looking into it, and it's very appropriate now at this point for us to go on. I looked. Yisro turns out to be a Gilgal of Cain. I wasn't there personally. I looked it up. Yisro was a Gilgal of Cain, and Moshe was a Gilgal of Hevel. Cain killed Hevel to get the twin sister Tzipporah. Now, so I added up Cain and Yisro. I added up Moshe, Hevel, and Tzipporah. Subtracted one from the number from the other. Came up with the number 19. 19 is Achi, my brother. Ani Chasancha Yisro. That I am Rosh Tevis, the initial letters, Aleph, Ches, Yud. Not adding up to 19. 19, of course, refers to life, refers to the concept of Chava, or source of life, in terms of as we know it, other than the big white light that started the world. And this is a continuum. This is a Gilgal. We asked for her to be, the Rebbetzin, to be a good Tibetan for us. We asked, and we're still connected to her. It's not like a separate, the Chof Beis Shevat, it's all over. It's still an ongoing process. We should continue with the Simcha that the Rebbetzin wanted. We should continue with the concept that we're happy with what we're doing. We're continuing the concepts of Lubavitch, not just for a concept of Lubavitch, but for all of us individually, to keep us internally fortified, keep us strong in face of any challenges in life, and to go through it with Simcha. And this is what the Simcha is going to overcome all barriers. There's a Yiddish expression for that also. The Simcha, or in Kabbalistic expression, the Simcha overcomes all the obstacles.
Simcha together.
Simcha, right, and that's what
Thank
the
you.
Rebbe
I
said.
wanted to interject. You said something before. I remember very clearly when the Rebbe was wheeled in, and from the ambulance through
Right.
to the office.
He came into the office, yeah.
Right, the Rebbe was holding his yarmulke. The Rebbe was always in control. The Rebbe was holding the yarmulke, and I remember this so strong. It's on my head.
You were standing there around
I was standing when they wheeled him
Right,
on the
right.
right, and the Rebbe was holding the yarmulke, and I saw he was looking around,
Oh, yeah, you
but he
were-
was holding the yarmulke.
You were in the back toward the right. I was standing on by his left hand, right. Yeah, so again,
Maybe Rabbi Meir Shlomo, maybe you could continue for a few of the stories that you know, and then we'll go back to Dr. Feldman.
I mean, the one time it was I think this was Pesach, and Achon Shal Pesach, and they needed a becher for the Rebbe. My father said we didn't have a becher in 770, so he sent a Kiddush cup. So my father sent me to the Rebbe's house. So I went there, and I came there, and the Rabbitson, I told the Rebbetzin that I becher for him verbringen. So she went and she picked a becher, a small becher. It was a gold becher, but it was very small. And she tells me, "Das ist genug for him. This will be enough for him." And so she picked out a small becher, and she said, "This will be enough for him." This was the only time I saw, but for bringing the Rebbe, she used a gold becher. That was actually Shal Pesach.
So because the Rebbe had the 4 cups, so
Right,
for
but
cases, she didn't want the Rebbe to
didn't want
drink.
it too much, so she made sure it was a small becher. Michal, the Rebbe was always involved. I mean, I know when Rashag wasn't well and he went to the hospital, the Rebbetzin told me to call her and let her know how his condition is. So I told the Rebbetzin, ich will nicht rufen zu spät. I don't want to call you so late because it's late at night. So she tells me, when you'll call me, you'll be fine. When it's rufen, it's fine. All right. I called her. It was around 2:30 at night, and I called her. She picked up the phone, and I told her how that Rabbi Grari was doing, Rashag was doing. And then she tells me, I heard the Rebbe coughing in the background. It was 2:30 in the morning. but I didn't hear the Rebbe speak anything, but she told me, Yibegem Rabbi Gerari, my man, Geist Yibegem Rabbi Gerari, at Zay Morgan of an oil, Vetrim de Monnen. My husband said, you should give over to Rabbi Gerari that my husband will be tomorrow at the oil, and he'll mention him. So the Rabbitson was, people, I called once for some people called, so someone once called me about ask a bracha for a shliach's kid, and the Rabbitson was
since I understand it's our time to finish, so I just want to conclude with a few words that we have the greatest chus, as Dr. Feldman, as Rabbi Lipsker just said, the greatest chus to feel like children to the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, and how the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin felt to us like a father and a mother, or a king and a queen, as Dr. Feldman mentioned. So I just want to mention that before I wrote one of my books, Yimei Bereshis, so I interviewed Rabbi Zalman Gurari. Zalman Gurari, the famous chassid, he was raised in the Rebbetzin, in the Frierdiker Rebbe's house, and the Rebbetzin was like his babysitter. So he considered himself like a young brother of the Rebbetzin. So when I interviewed him, so it was basically about the book about the Rebbe, but he kept talking about the Rebbetzin. So once he said to me to try to describe the Rebbetzin, he said that she inherited the Frierdiker Rebbe's mind, that she was like the Frierdiker Rebbe, her royalty, her intelligence, her gedusha. He was even saying if she would be a boy, she would be the Rebbe. He was kept saying how she was like the Frierdiker Rebbe in as a daughter, and we had the schus to be children, and we have the schus to be children of the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, and just like as the Rebbe said about the Rabbeim, that the Hu B'chaim, that and Tzaddik is in this world. So the Rebbetzin continues, and the Rebbe said it clearly in the Sikha from Shevat several times, that Becho Yivorach Yisrael, the Rebbe said the Chof Beis is Becho Yivorach Yisrael. In the last year of the Chof Shevat, the Rebbe said Nun Beis in 1992, that the day of Chof Shevat is a day that the Rebbetzin is pouring blessings, ein-safe blessings on all the Chassidim all over the world. So it's a schus for all of us. If you're home and you haven't had a Fabringen or made a Achlata Teva to remember to in honor of the Rebbetzin, it's opportunity for the greatest brachas for the children. Our children should be mekusher. Our children should be mekusher to the Rebbe, and that all of the Chassidim and all of the children and the Heiniklach should all feel the same sense of iskashos, the same sense of love and inspiration that we felt to the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. Even those of us who didn't see her, I personally saw when she used to walk in Tov Shimon Beis in 1982. She started to walk on Erev Shabbos. She used to come in, and Rabbi Junik's brother used to walk with her. And I actually saw the Rebbetzin several times. But even those of us who didn't see the Rebbetzin, that we should continue feeling the same sense of iskashos and love and inspiration to know that the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin are here with us as they bring such brachas. And we just heard that the Rebbetzin is giving all the brachas to us. And the Rebbe said about her the greatest thing. So it's an opportunity, everyone in their home, in their shul, in their Chabad, in their community, to make a Fabringen and to do Achlata Tevis and to learn from the Rebbe Sichas about the Rebbetzin, and to do everything that the Rebbe said, Lisnaik Berucha, to go in the Rebbetzin spirit and to continue, as the Rebbetzin was the greatest chassid of the Rebbe, she taught us the way, to continue with the greatest iskashos. And even if there is something that we don't understand, we should, as the Rebbetzin said, Lamed Ches, if the Rebbe said something, this is the way to go, and that will turn out for the best. So l'chaim everyone, I want to thank all our presenters.
One story about Rabbi Gerari. Okay, one story about Rabbi Gerari. You heard how close he was with the Rebbe. Rebbetzin. I was in the room with the Rebbe in his house one time, and the Rebbe told me something, and he said, "Now remember, don't tell anybody." So I said, "But Rabbi Gerari, Shneur Zalman Gerari, is standing right outside the door. You know he's not going to let me out of here or past him without telling at the current word is vet to interrogate me." So the Rebbe said, "For him, you can tell a little bit." So I went out of the room, and Rabbi Gerari was standing there, and he asked me what he started to. He was very intensive in his questioning, but he asked me what happened or what the Rebbe said, and so I told him a little bit, which I knew was just a tiny little bit, and it was the bracha of the Rebbe to let me get past him and keep going. He was a very special person. He was the one that paid for all the electricity in 770. He was the one that did many things, and also had that house next door to the Rebbe, where to protect the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, along with that friendly
So
dog.
l'chaim, everyone,
Okay,
l'chaim,
l'chaim.
and we should continue with the discussions to the Rebbe and learn from the Rebbetzin how to be true chassidim. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Chai is 18. 18 is also the word chet. Hes, tes, yud. Hes, tes.
Ya 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 ya